and welcome to another episode of Inappropriately Funny, the podcast where we talk a lot about everything and a lot of times nothing at all. But today we are going to break with that, all right, because we actually have a comedian on, all right? So this guy here needs no introduction. But let me go through his introduction real quick. All right.
No, but we're doing it.
we're doing it anyway, though. So our guest today, comedian Letterman, James Corden, Seth Meyers, America's Got Talent, Last Comic Standing. He's got podcasts. He's got specials. He's got all kinds of stuff. You know, I don't want to take the guy's thunder here. You know what I mean? But Myq Kaplan is joining us today, and unlike you and I, he's an actual comedian. Yeah. So
not a party comedian.
Yeah.
He's not a party comedian.
Yes. Well, Myq, thanks for coming on with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Again,
yeah.
Very happy to be here. For your listening audience, obviously, they may not know that I've had a conversation with you before, but we know, you know, I know, and so I'm thrilled to have been invited back at a time that you guys hit record. And so,
understood.
Truly, it was a pleasure talking with you off the record, and now I'm happy to get it all. That was a pre-interview. Happy to get it on the record. It was truly a pleasure. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Yeah. So so we had Myq on a while back, and we had some technical difficulties. Maybe a button or two. Just one. We didn't hit record.
If Myq was kind enough, I think we talked for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then we hung up. Hey, Myq, thank you. Blah blah blah. We look, and Sue goes, "Oh my god." Oh my god!
I'm like, there's no way this guy's coming back on, right? You know, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll come back on." I'm like, "Oh shit!" Yeah.
But well, Myq was kind enough to come back. Thank you, Myq. Seriously.
Of course. You know, I like that you said I need no introduction. I had a whole 90-minute introduction a month ago, you know, and when people say he needs no introduction, and then go on to deliver an introduction, I think, yes, it's not needed, but it is appreciated. It is, I think it's wanted. It's enjoyed. So thank you very much. I appreciate your hospitality, your kindness, and happy to be here.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, you know, the introduction for you has to be there because you've been doing it for almost 20 years. You were saying maybe more, but you have a pretty good resume, dude. It's not like, you know, we just picked you off the streets of New York and we're like, oh, today's my first day. I'm like, all right, maybe then we wouldn't have no introduction. You know, you actually got a pretty good resume, man. So, like, tell us a little bit about like your resume and some of these shows and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you were on and your experiences and stuff like that with these, man. Because you know the one, if I'm not mistaken, is Nikki Glazer. Am I saying her name the right way? It's your friend.
Last Comic Stand.
Yeah, man. I mean, you had America's Got Talent. That's pretty. You apparently have talent. So I mean,
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll run you through it. Like this is a job interview. So
if you don't mind, hold on. Give me a Let me get the Peter thing.
My strengths and weaknesses. I was going to college up in Boston, and I found I was performing music. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, and I was looking around for clubs where I could play my songs. I found a place called the Comedy Studio that I was like, can I play my funny songs there? They said, okay. I got 5 minutes. I talked in between the songs. I fell in love with making people laugh. I realized that being a comedian was something that was possible. I had started going to tons of open mics. You know, this is like 2002, I would say. I was like, I really want to just do comedy, you know, and I aspired to do it for a living. I aspired to need no introduction. At the time, I needed an introduction, but I had no introduction.
That's what I'm saying.
When you're just starting out, you have nothing. You're like, oh, like you get on a show with a comedian who people have heard of, and you're like, has worked with this comedian, you know, has worked with Jonathan Katz of Dr. Katz Professional Therapist. You know, that was, he was on the first show I ever did, not because I'm anything. I was nothing. I was not a comedian. I was not a real performer until then. I was, you know, hardly even not yet an open micer, but you know, you put in the time. Yeah. I realized I learned that all over the Boston area and, you know, the surrounding, you know, sort of states, basically, you could drive up to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. You could drive down to Rhode Island or Connecticut, and within an hour or a few hours, you find, you know, other open mics where you could drive 3 hours and get 5 minutes on stage and go home sad, right? And you do that enough, and eventually you go home medium sad, and you go home 3/4 happy, and eventually you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, you have 20 minutes, you know, maybe you're getting booked to get paid $25 to do 15 minutes at a Chinese restaurant in Andover, Massachusetts. And a couple years later, you do that same gig and you get, you know, $50, you know, and you've doubled your, and then if you could keep doubling it, that would really work. But they stop after a point. They're like, oh, now, you know, come back here in 4 years, then eventually you'll be, you know, in 18 years, you should be making infinite money. But eventually, you know, you sort of, I started auditioning for like Conan's, like Conan was doing like the late night, you know, before he took over the Tonight Show, before he went over to TBS. He, his people, you know, for the late night show that he did on NBC, they would come to the Comedy Studio where I started and do auditions, and I was on 1 or 2 of those, and I would go down to New York and be on those. And the booker for Letterman, a guy named Eddie Brill at the time, he's still named that. He's just not the booker for Letterman anymore, because that's not a show anymore. Letterman still does have shows, but now he books people like Obama and Malala, which they have a different booker. I mean, I feel like, I don't know how their type 5 is, but Obama's pretty funny. This Letterman booker, he came up to Boston. I remember I started around 2002. In 2004, I was at the Boston Comedy Festival, and this guy, Eddie Brill, the Letterman booker, did like he was on a panel, you know, like an industry panel where they're telling you, you know, like kind of what options, like how do you get into festivals? How do you get on TV? How do you get an agent? How do you do this or that? And he said, because he was also a comedian, he was like, he's like, here's my address where you can send a tape, literally a VHS tape at the time or what have you. And he said, I know what it is like to be on your end, comedians. I know what it's like to not know how to reach people, that there's all these industry gatekeepers. I don't know how to break through, how to get someone to pay attention. You know, I know how to do comedies. Like I know how to, you know, go to an open mic and work on your craft and keep, you know, writing and performing and hopefully gaining experience and becoming more and more happy with what kind of work you're doing. But how do you get other people to care? And he said, well, now I'm the person who books comedians for Letterman. Anyone who sends me a 5-minute set, he's like, I try to watch it as whenever I can, and then I try to get back to the people. And I try to give notes, you know, whatever it is, I try to give constructive feedback. And so I, you know, 2 years into comedy, I sent him my first, like a 5-minute set. And probably like 4 months later, I get, I think either an email or a call, and he tells me that he likes some of my jokes, and he thinks that I need like some more time to be seasoned and gain, you know, poise and, you know, stage presence and things. And I was like, what does this guy know? You know, I'm 2 years in, I know what I'm doing. But, you know, like 10 years later, I'm like, that guy knew what he was talking about. But he was like, keep doing it, and, you know, send me. And so I kept sending him every couple years, or every year I would send him a new tape. And eventually, I think in 2008, I sent, he actually had me on a live audition show in Boston at the Comedy Studio, and it was the most packed I'd ever seen it, completely like standing room only. It's like a small place, but it was just like probably a fire code violation. And it was the hottest audience that I'd ever seen. That set is actually, it's one of the only, like I have a couple of comedy specials on my YouTube channel, you know, like hour specials, half-hour specials that I've made over the years. This set from 2008 is also on my YouTube. It's one of the only like short sets I have on there, just because it was the most perfect set that I had at the time. Just the audience responded wonderfully. Like I usually, I think in the past I would rush, and like if the audience didn't respond immediately, I'd start talking and go into the next joke. But on this night, the audience was so immediate and so loud that it forced me to be, even more patient and let them enjoy it at their pace. And after that show, the Letterman booker said to me, that was phenomenal. He had no specific notes. And I was like, wow, I guess I'm going to be on Letterman soon. And then he had me audition again the next year. And he said, you're rushing again. And then he finally had me on in 2011, 3 years after my perfect set. And the next year, actually, 2009, I got to be on The Tonight Show with Conan in the limited window where Conan was hosting that show, because the booker of that show had reached out to me because he'd seen me on another audition for a different festival that I didn't get in probably 2007. And he reaches out in June 2009. He says, I'm taking over the booking of The Tonight Show now that Conan is hosting it. And I'd love for you to submit a set. And here are some jokes of yours that I've seen that I enjoy. And I sent him in a set and he approved it. And then 6 months later, I was on The Tonight Show. And then 1 month after that, after I was on The Tonight Show, Eddie Brill, the Letterman booker, comes to me and says, hey, I saw you on The Tonight Show. Congratulations. I just want to let you know you probably could have done some of those jokes on Letterman. And I'm like, that's what I've been trying to tell you for 7 years. And so then from that point on, from 2010 through mid 2011, I just, worked to get together a set that he approved, and he eventually did. And then it just kind of, like it was they talk about overnight successes, and you're like, oh wow, I never heard of this person, and now you hear him everywhere. Or like you hear a word for the first time, and then you're like, oh, I never heard that word before, and then you start seeing that word everywhere. But there was a lot of things going on sort of beneath the surface. Like obviously before I made it to TV for the first time, I was doing comedy for 7 years with like nobody putting me on television, just sort of working in relative obscurity, just doing my best to get more experience under my belt, get better and better.
Sure, season.
Eventually that the season arrived, and the time was, and then I'm very grateful that I was able to around that time also stop doing other jobs besides comedy. Around 2008, that's when I got a college booking agent that was able to book me a bunch of gigs that I was like, if this keeps up, if I can keep booking this quantity and quality of gig, then I don't need to work as a barista anymore. I don't need to work as a summer camp counselor anymore. I don't need to do all of these day jobs. I mean, I love working as a summer camp counselor. I love being a barista.
Right there, dude. What are you talking about?
Happy to do it. But yeah, so that was how it all got started and got there.
That's so awesome. Great, man. So now obviously these are pretty big shows, and I thought I always thought Conan O'Brien was a funny guy and everything like that. Do you ever get like nervous? I won't call it stage fright, but is it nervous when you're going on? Is it the same as like a Chinese restaurant? You know what I mean? Like in your mind, you know what I mean? Like you always hear like sports athletes saying, man, the game's the game, right? Whether you're playing the first game of the season or the Super Bowl, the game's the game. You get the nerves, but like, do you get nervous? With depending on the venue and the crowd and the what's at stake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess if we're comparing like being on television compared to an average, like a show, like I have 2 shows tonight, and I am not nervous about those shows. Like they're in comedy clubs in New York City that I've performed at before. I feel comfortable in these places. I've been invited back to these places. So it's sort of like, I don't know if you guys are nervous every time you start this podcast, or every time, whatever you've been doing for most of your life, anything that you've been doing over and over for your entire life. Like I will say, doing something new for the first time, there will be more potential nerves. Like the first time when I did The Tonight Show, absolutely. I remember there was a woman I was dating at the time, and she came out to LA with me to do that. And my girlfriend now is just off to my side here listening, and she gasped at the
Fantastic.
mention of a previous girlfriend. She had no idea that anyone existed aside from her. A fun bit that she does.
Beautiful.
Sorry to not have her on mic, but I remember when I did that Tonight Show set, which, you know, I had it approved probably like at least 5 or 6 months earlier, and I've been running it and working it and, you know, doing it in all different clubs, you know, in front of audiences that were receptive and audiences that were a little less receptive, and just to get it, be like, this is how that 5 minutes goes. And so I did my best to prepare. And even then, yes, knowing that, you know, that set would be aired by, you know, more than 1 million people, a couple million people, I don't know exactly the numbers, but, you know, beyond just the room that I was in, the stakes seemed higher. And I remember doing that set, and there was one moment like in the middle of it where between one joke and the next there was like a pause longer. Like I don't know if I don't remember it, like what was about to come, or I didn't remember, but I remember my girlfriend at the time telling me afterwards, she was like, I don't think anyone else would ever notice like the split second, like longer that it took to get from that joke to that joke. But she was like, in that split second, it was like, you know, her heart was in her throat. She was like, oh no, what's about? And so I was like, yes, in that moment. So I would say doing television, like the job of doing comedy is almost exclusively not being on television. Even the biggest comedians, even, you know, your Kevin Harts, you know, your Jerry Seinfelds, like most of our lives aren't even on stage. You know, I'm gonna go on stage tonight. I'll be on stage for a total of potentially an hour, you know, maybe less, because I'm doing like sort of, you know, showcase sets around New York. And you know, like, when you do a job, when you have a 9 to 5, you're doing that job 8 hours a day. And obviously performing comedy isn't the only part of doing comedy. There's, of course, the writing aspect of it, the coming up with ideas, the traveling, all of the administrative tasks. But the actual doing of it, of being on stage, is a small fraction of the life of a comedian. And being on TV is an even smaller fraction of the comedy life of a comedian. And so it's a strange thing. And so when it does happen, yes, it is, I feel like almost any human being in an unusual situation, you know, will potentially like be somewhere on the having nerves spectrum. I will say that having done, you know, now having done comedy since 2002, almost 25 years, wow. I would say, you know, when I go to a new venue, like I do my best to go in with an open mind, with sort of a no expectations, or if any expectations, like I was invited here and I'm gonna have a good time. Like, and every once in a while, you know, there's audience members or there's whole audiences that might have a vibe of like, this better be funny, arms crossed, and compared to the audience that's like, this is gonna be great. And like, you know, I would encourage you to be like, if you're an audience member, like be the kind, go to shows where you're like, this is gonna be great. Be excited for a show. Like, you know, I know that there's all kinds of, you know, like gong show type mentality. Some people watch America's Got Talent or reality shows to see the horror stories, the nightmares of the people who don't know, you know, aren't in control of their instrument as much as others. But if you're going to a professional comedy show with professional comedians who they're mostly going to be in control of their instrument, doesn't mean that every audience will like the music that every comedian is playing. That you know, maybe you don't like the oboe, maybe you don't, you know, like the greatest chef in the world can make an incredible dish that you might not enjoy if you don't like eggplant or the seasoning, or if you're allergic to grapes or whatever it might be. But I will say, you know, even eventually, after I did a couple of TV tapings, like I then got those under my belt, and I'm like, oh, now this is something that I have done. And here's an analogy. Like I I don't know if you know the website Quora, Quora.
Heard it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like people ask questions and then like the answers that people like the most get upvoted, you know, kind of like Reddit or something where you then, oh, so here's the question. And then here's like the most popular or most productive or helpful answer. And I remember reading a question once that somebody said, what's it like to be a genius? And the answer that got the most votes was from a person who like started kind of humbly. They're like, look, I'm not saying that I am a genius. I don't know like what that would specifically mean, but I've been working in my field for 20 plus years, and I operate, you know, on these problems that many people find difficult, and I often find them difficult. In fact, I often find the things that I'm dealing with impossible when I'm starting, but if I think something's impossible, then I work at it long enough and I chip away at it until eventually I solve the problem. And then once I've solved the problem, I don't think of it as I did the impossible. I now think of it as in front of me, it's impossible, but behind me, it's just a thing that I did. And so for me, I'm also not just as a parallel. I see like when there's something ahead of you, like that you haven't done, you're like, wow, what is it? It seems perhaps an insurmountable task, a mountain you haven't climbed. And then once you've climbed it, you're like, oh, now I've climbed a mountain. Maybe I could climb another mountain. Doesn't mean the mountain's not hard to climb or that it doesn't take, you know, the skills and practice and experience that you've gained. But once you have that experience, I'm like, oh yeah, after the first one, I'm like, and everyone is different. Like just because you've done something doesn't mean that you can do something else, but doing something, I think, is sort of the best evidence that you can do something else like that thing. So I think over the years, from that first television appearance, where I was like maybe probably the most nervous that I ever was, and then like again when I did America's Got Talent in 2015, the third, I made it to the quarterfinals, and that round was live at Radio City, and that's you know, going out live to millions of people, and that was a new thing, which you know I wasn't super nervous going into it, but I was when I was there. Yeah, I definitely should have been. I should have been a little more nervous. I was aware. I guess I become more aware. And I strive to do that whenever I get on stage. Whenever I get on stage, I try to be present with the audience in the moment, try to, you know what I want to do, have a plan, but then also be open to like potential deviations from the plan that spring from something arising in the moment, in the room, in my own experience, in an idea, in a moment of discovery or creation or curation or following, you know, like Toucan Sam following my nose. I'm sorry that advertisement is still within me from my Fruit Loops childhood. But yeah, so I guess the answer is, I get nervous.
So I hear some sirens in the background. Mike,
that's New York, man.
You got to go or there's something. I mean, like, you just
that's New York. That's the city.
I'm just making sure. Like, if you need something, you know, let me know. We got some bail money here, you know.
Thank you.
So I know you said about music, and I want to say the last time we talked, Weird Al was one of your who's your favorite comics?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, depends how
besides
long.
You.
Yeah, I'm you know, it's funny, during the pandemic, you know, I did a lot of Zoom and like Instagram live comedy shows, and my mom she learned how to use all the technology so she could watch, and I became her main activity during that time. And whenever she would watch a show, like I'll go see like live shows with her. Like we've seen Mike Birbiglia perform. We've really enjoyed Paul Reiser. He was my first favorite comedian from childhood. We've seen she's seen Seinfeld, and then like, you know, I also do shows with like my good friend Liz Glazer, one of my best friends, and she's one of my favorite people. And so my mom would watch me do like an Instagram show that my friend Dan Wilbur would do. And then like the next day she would call me and tell me, here's my top 5 favorite comedians. Like the day after, she always include some of the people that she just saw, like my friends, but also Seinfeld, you know. So it would be like the day after we saw Paul Reiser the first time, she called me up and she said, now here's my top 5. She says, number 1, you, Myq Kaplan. Number 2, Paul Reiser. Number 3, Mike Birbiglia. Number 4 is actually a tie between Seinfeld and your friend Liz Glazer. And she was like, And then she said, don't tell anyone this. She's
great.
authorized it, but she said, I don't want it getting back to Seinfeld that I prefer Paul Reiser. So don't tell Seinfeld. But
well, we have them on. It's our secret.
Here are some of my favorite comedians. Truly, like I remember I did a Reddit AMA a month or so ago to help promote my newest comedy special, Rini, that I made with my girlfriend Rini. And so if you go on like Reddit and look up my account, which is my name, Myq Kaplan, spelled my weird way, and you can find like AMAs I've done. And I'm sure I've answered this question like extensively in writing, but I'll give you like a brief answer. Some of my favorite comedians, Maria Bamford, Reggie Watts, Paul F. Tompkins, Joe Firestone, Aparna Nancherla, James A.K.A, Nick Vatterott, Shane Moss, Beth Stelling, Lori Kilmartin, Jackie Cation, like Sarah Silverman, Tig Notaro, like the list. I mean, literally, I could name hundreds of people. Like if you give me like a genre of comedy, if you want like clownish people, I could go in one direction. You want political comedians, like, you want W. Kamau Bell, you want John Fugelsang, you want Liz Winstead, you want Hari Kondabolu. If you want like people from other countries, I love Daniel Simonson from Norway and Sophie Hagen from Denmark and Abby Wamba, who lives in Denmark but is from America, and Fern Brady, I think, and Laura Davis from I believe Australia, and Aaron Chen. Oh God, like there's so many funny, weird, incredible comedians. Like I could truly, I have a podcast where I have some of my favorite comedians on every week, and I talk to them for hours, but I could literally spend hours naming comedians, and for the mercy of your listeners, I will not, but those are some.
Now you have two podcasts.
Yeah,
I do.
Correct. And they are, I love the one. Go ahead. Let's hear the name.
Yeah.
Sure.
Explain the name, please, for the people.
Yeah.
I happily will. I have a podcast that was my very first podcast that I don't do anymore, is called Hang Out With Me, that I started in 2012 and I did to 2018, and I called it that just because I liked talking to people like this. I just wanted an excuse to invite people over and be like, hey, like ordinarily, if you just said, hey, do you want to talk for an hour on a Saturday afternoon? Like, sure, but also, hey, what if we record it? Or in your case, what if we don't record it? But then later we will.
I was going to say again. You want to talk again?
That's the final one.
Hey, this guy's good. Good, told you.
In 2018, I started doing a podcast called Broccoli and Ice Cream. And the name of that is based on the fact that I talk to people, mostly fellow comedians, but also other kinds of artists, sometimes just friends of mine, sometimes politicians, like anyone who I think I can have an interesting conversation with. And It's called Broccoli and Ice Cream because I have two conversations with each person. One about the work that they do in their life, like their passions, whether it's their career or just that they're working, whatever work means to them. And that's the broccoli of their life. And then the ice cream of their life is the non-work passions that they have, what brings people joy, what brings them calm and makes them feel peaceful, those things. So it could be hobbies, it could be, activism, it could be, their relationship, it could be, if they have a day job, it could be their artistic passions. So that's Broccoli and Ice Cream. One episode comes out for free every week and one's on my Patreon. And the drug dealer model, I give you one for free and then you got to pay for the rest. And then my other podcast that I started during the pandemic was inspired by and named by Rini, my girlfriend, and it's called The Faucet, because during the pandemic I was doing all of these Zoom shows, all of these just like online, and a Zoom comedy show is different than a live comedy show. It is not precisely the same thing. It is not nothing. Like, it is more than nothing, but it is different than a full show. But so I treated them differently. I treated it more like sort of a live performance art piece where I wasn't, because if you're doing a show on Zoom, sometimes you can't even hear the audience. So I could tell a joke that works on a live audience and get hardly any audible response from an audience. I'm like, well, if I'm going to get hardly any audible response from my best curated joke, why not just try something new and get, I could have a new idea get the same response as my best joke. And so I riffed a lot and I experimented and I was just in the moment more. And it was, like this, except without you guys, and I would just talk and talk and talk. And eventually Rini, my wonderful partner, said, you just did a show where you did like an hour of brand new material. You could just have a podcast where you do that every week, just an hour of talking or a half hour or 8 minutes or whatever it is. And it's basically like you're turning on the faucet and just spouting off a stream of consciousness. And so that was where the podcast, The Faucet, was born. And it started mostly just myself, but every once in a while, and more recently, I will invite fellow fauceteers. I will have other friends like my friend Liz Glazer, who I mentioned, who's another, just a person who could talk infinitely on her own, and I can talk infinitely on my own. And when we talk together, we have a beautiful double infinity. And so I'll have other guests with whom I'll just, be inspired to like ask questions and share just, like just friendship in vocal liquid form. So yeah, those are my podcasts.
Nice, man. That's pretty cool, man. So obviously you've been doing it for 25 years. What's your dream venue? What is your goal? Like, hey man, if I, not saying you're not successful, but like if I hit it here, dude, that's the shit.
You
know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like
a Vegas gig? Is it Madison Square Garden?
Is it the Sphere in Las Vegas next to Kenny Chesney?
Radio City Music Halls.
Radio City Music Hall. That's actually pretty big, dude. So well done. Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
No. Yeah. I drove by.
No.
I unloaded a truck there once.
That's hilarious. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because here's the thing. I have performed at Radio City Music Hall. I have performed at Carnegie Hall. I have performed at the Apollo. I've performed at the Edinburgh Fringe
Fest. Stop you, man. I gotta stop you.
That's pretty good.
How did the Apollo go?
Yeah.
Well, I was there opening for another comedian, and so it wasn't, it wasn't Def Jam, it wasn't live at the Apollo, it wasn't people.
Lawrence, and how did it go?
It went.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was booked to do 15 minutes of my comedy as an opening act for a headliner, and I did my 15 minutes, and it went well. It was, So
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm treading on you.
Yeah.
All right. I saw another guy do it, and that's a tough audience, regardless of the color or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's a very tough audience, and I thought, as soon as you said that, I'm like, man, like you got to bring it. You really have to bring it at the Apollo, man.
Good for you, man.
Oh, I appreciate it. I will say it's so funny that you say that too, just because, the audience, it's not like the Apollo has one audience that's there all the time. They do have, like, it depends. It does. I think it can depend on who the headlining act is as to who's going to show up in the audience that night. But, I will not disabuse you of your notion. I am an incredible comedian who could survive at the Apollo. Thank you. But, there's a comedian. I'm gonna continue to answer. I'm eventually gonna answer your question. This is all an answer to your question. But there's a comedian I love named Greg Fitzsimmons, and Greg has a joke that I love about his son and how he was at like a wishing well with his son, and he said to his son, "You can throw a penny into the well and make a wish." And his pen, he gives the kid a penny, and the kid throws the penny in, and then his dad he says, "What'd you wish for?" And the kid says, "I wish to throw the penny." And he's like, wow, this kid's like a Zen master, you know what I mean? And he's wishing to do the thing that he's doing now. And I understand that your question is trying to get around me saying, like, I wish, like, literally what I want is what I am doing. And of course, I want to continue to do what I'm doing. And I would love to perform for, it's not about any specific venue. Truly, it's about ideally for, more and more, a higher quantity of quality people. Like, I'd rather perform for half a room full of people who are there because they know who I am and they love what I do, rather than that same room full of people, 3/4 of whom don't know who I am. You know, I mean, I'll perform in any room, like put me wherever, but I want more and more people to, you know, to watch my specials, to listen to my albums, to come see me live, to tell their friends and be like, oh, I like this. If I like this, then you'll like this. Because the question is ultimately kind of like, you know, when you're looking at the horizon. When I started doing comedy in 2002, my goal was literally to become a full-time comedian, I wanted to be on TV, but I wanted to be on TV only because I knew that meant that I could potentially book more gigs. That would mean I didn't have to be a barista anymore. I wanted to have a college booking agent because I knew that they could book me gigs that would pay me money so I could pay my rent with comedy. That was my goal, to pay my rent with comedy. My goal now is actually to maybe take money out of it, because I don't know if you know this famous like Jim Carrey quote. He's like, you know, I hope that everyone gets everything that they ever dreamed of, so they find out that that's not it, you know. And then there's a similar Bill Murray quote where he's like, if you ever dream of being rich and famous, just try being rich first, you know. And so but here's the thing is, you know, wherever you are, like there's always a horizon ahead of you. And when I was starting out, the horizon was, I want to get there. I see there's other people that are succeeding at comedy at a certain level, and I want to get there. I want to not have a day job. And then eventually when I got to the place where I didn't have a day job, I was like, okay, now I want, like in 2008, I got my most of my money made from college gigs. And so still people didn't know who I was. And I was like, okay, well now the next horizon is maybe people knowing who I am, even getting on the Tonight Show. Not everyone knew who I was after that. I mean, even after doing Last Comic Standing, that was the first thing in 2010 that made people book me because of who I was, because people now would come see me because they had seen me on the show and they weren't just coming to, you know, generic comedy for tonight. You know, they were like, I want to see this Myq Kaplan show. And America's Got Talent did more of that as well. So I don't know what the next thing is that will make it so that more and more people come see, like that's the horizon that I'm aiming for now, is where more and more people know Myq Kaplan, know who I am, know what I do, like what I do, love what I do, share what I do with others, and keep coming. So it doesn't matter the venue. It's because, and whenever I get there, then there'll be another horizon, because the question of like, okay, so when you get to the horizon of your dreams, beyond which there is no other horizon, then what? That, I mean, there's like, that ultimately then you're that child being like, I wish to throw the penny. I mean, that's it. I just get truly like, I love doing what I'm doing right now. I love talking to you guys like this. Up until a month ago, maybe this was the only thing that I hadn't done. And then I was like, a month ago, I did it. And now I'm like, now I got to do it again. This is the horizon beyond the horizon.
Well, the good news is I still see recording up on the screen. So we are
at this point.
We're absolutely moving forward.
So real quick, let's get to your latest special. And you better now, was this your greatest album? And you better answer this correctly.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, I truly, it's so funny because I do feel like all of my jokes, all of my albums, all of my hours of comedy are my children. That said, I do love the newest one best. You know, I don't know if I'm not a parent, but I assume if you're a parent and you have multiple children, you know, you become a better parent by the last kid, so you can make that kid even better. That's how it works for a comedy special. But yeah, I mean, I feel wonderful that every time I've created an album or a special, I've been like, well, that is the best album that I have made to date. That is, and it's funny because obviously different people might have different favorites. You know, there's some people who are like, I love this joke that you wrote 15 years ago, that you wrote 20 years ago. And I'm like, that's wonderful. I'm glad that you love that. I'm always like the happiest with the work that I'm doing now because it's the work that I'm doing now. And so my latest special, which is called Rini, which is named for my girlfriend Rini, with whom I co-wrote and created the special. Rini is like a work of art that I'm super proud of and happy with, like in a different way than any of the other pieces of comedy that I've ever created, specifically because it was created in direct collaboration with my partner in a way that I had, you know, we've been together almost 10 years. And started, sort of collaborating in a way as soon as we met, or as soon as like we started being together in a meaningful way where she would come to shows, and she is has a real wisdom and kindness and artistic sensibility and integrity in a way that is really both aligns with mine and offers something, a perspective outside of mine, which is, a beautiful confluence, that dichotomy to both, know me and understand me and love me and my work, and to have her own ideas about what makes something, funny, what makes something good, what makes comedy, the best that it can be. And so, like, I think maybe I mentioned this last time, but the idea that I think it's David Cross who had a joke, or maybe I've seen other jokes like this, where the idea is about the fact that if you're a gay man and you marry another gay man who's about your size and dimensions, then you've just doubled your wardrobe, let's say. And obviously you can put whatever genders you want in there. Yeah. And
That's awesome.
I think that's somebody's joke. I think it might be David Cross.
That's that's fine.
The reason I bring it up is because Rini and I, like, we don't share the same literal wardrobe, but I think we do share the same, like, the fact that she is not a comedian, that she does not perform comedy herself, but she does create. She is an artist. She has a brilliant, beautiful brain and heart that has ideas, and that now basically our wardrobe of comedy ingredients, of things of ideas that can be funny and interesting and meaningful and can go into my comedy, has doubled the same way that somebody's literal wardrobe has doubled. Like, I can have ideas and she can have ideas, and now there's twice as many ideas, and so we can have twice as many good ideas, plus the fact that we're interacting with each other, and I think that we can both make each other's ideas better. So it's probably not just additive, but probably multiplicative or exponential. And so I feel like that, definitely my special, Rini, which you can see on YouTube for as forever as YouTube is for free, is, it is I do think that each one of my, hours that have come before, I love and I'm grateful for and I'm proud of, and they're all singular pieces. And also I can look back at, my first album from 2010 recorded in 2009 and think like, oh, there's some jokes on there that I wouldn't say the same way again, because I have grown as a person, I've grown as a human being, I've grown as an artist, I've grown as a comedian. And so, I think that that's also great. I think it's a good thing. My mom one time went on a date with a man and told me that he said that he thought that his favorite time of life was high school. And she, she's in her 60s at the time, I think. and she thought that did not resonate with her at all. And I asked her when her favorite time of life was, and she said today, because that's the day that's happening now. And I thought that was beautiful and brilliant and wonderful. And that resonates with me. And so that is why I feel that way about the special, Rini.
Beautiful.
Nah.
Well, listen, I mean, it's a good segue. We got a couple of other like little fun things that we're going to do. Before we do that, though, it's a great segue. Is there anything coming up that you want to promote to the hordes of our fans and now collectively your fans?
Thank you.
Anything you want to like, promote? Anything you got coming up? Anything that you want to let folks know to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I will say, number one, if you only remember one thing, that special Rini, which is spelled Rini, and then I do have a few other specials on YouTube and other places as well. So you can, get as much of my comedy online. You can follow me. If you spell my name correctly, you can find me everywhere. It's Myq Kaplan, and that's all of my social media, my website. You can get my live tour dates at my website, or you can follow me. It would be helpful at punchup.live/Myq Kaplan. And then I also put out a weekly newsletter at myqkaplan.substack.com, where I sort of put discussions of jokes that I love and sort of philosophical implications thereof And so I really enjoy writing that. And so you can check out some of my writing and jokes and find out that there. And then all of my albums are streaming on the various platforms. And my live tour dates, come see me live if I'm near you or you're near me.
Yeah.
And if I'm not coming near you, ask your local comedy venue to bring me. And, as evidenced by my being here, I'll go anywhere. I will truly, if I am invited. If I am invited to perform.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's good.
And listen, Rini is great.
Yeah, it is.
Rini's
Thank
great.
you.
I want to say my favorite. I don't want to say because me and my wife been binge watching you. We had to drive about an hour and a half ride to go see my son, so we just keep throwing everything on. And my favorite, the name escapes me, but when you're standing in
My favorite is
the blue tuxedo standing in the doorway.
Oh yeah.
Small work and handsome.
I think that is comedy gold, man. Seriously, I love really great special, man.
Yeah.
And Rini's great too, but I mean, like I said, just going back and listening to everything.
Yeah.
I understand and appreciate. Yeah, that one is Small, Dork, and Handsome. That was my first hour special that was originally on Netflix, and then it is on Amazon currently. And then they did just put it on YouTube as well, so that one is available.
Yeah,
you can if you listen to it just on Spotify or wherever you stream, there is actually a different final bonus track. So if you've only watched it, there's potentially one more track available to you. I don't know if you listen to it via whichever platform, but
Spotify. Yeah, we got yours.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head, going through some of the poops and monsters.
Well, thank you so much.
I'm telling you. So, listen to our fans out there. If you haven't listened to Myq, I'm telling you, you'll really enjoy him. He's phenomenal. He's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right. So, couple of things. Yeah, you can kind of play off of this here. So, kind of like rapid fire. Clean joke or a dirty joke?
Oh, I mean, if I have to pick just one, I'll say, and if they are of equal caliber, then clean joke, I would say.
Yeah, I like that. Wordplay or storytelling, like in a joke?
Sure. I think a lot of people would assume that I would go. I mean, I love them both, and I probably, in some ways, I bet I am more of a natural word player than a classic storyteller. So I'm going to say storyteller because I like taking in things that are often different than me. But I don't. They're all my children. I love them both. I hate that you're making me choose. But
well, you're
in this game,
absolutely the most intelligent person we ever had. So.
Yeah. We're actually writing down about 37 things you said. We're going to go back and
you don't believe the shit up Google when we get off of here.
So funny. From the audience, silence or groans?
Silence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also, groans. I understand why people are like, I like a reaction. I want any reaction. And that does mean something. And, if it's only a groan, if it's a groan from some along with a laugh, that's fine. I don't mind that as much. But also, I mean, silence is both. It can be the worst thing, and also it can mean they're listening. It can be the harshest rebuke, or the greatest honor that an audience is paying attention.
Awesome. Now, is there a joke that you love, or like a bit that you love that you think, dude, this is so funny, but people just don't understand it? People don't get it. I mean, is there like a thing? It's like, what? I thought that was gonna hit. It was a home run, but it didn't. Is there like a joke that you do, or jokes, or like I said, like a bit of some sort, like a topic?
Oh yeah, I understand the question. I mean, the answer is absolutely. There are countless. I've probably forgotten more than I can remember. I will say, sometimes a joke, like the audience just does not have the reference. Like if, like here's a joke that I did put on an album, and I do think that the audience responded enough that I left it on the album, but I will say that not every audience responded that same way. And I don't, let me see if I remember it exactly. Maybe you'll remember it more if you listen more recently, but it was about, the Scarecrow. Like the Scarecrow didn't have a brain, but then look what happened when he got one. He terrorized Gotham City with his fear gas and nearly killed the Batman. And so that is a joke that requires people to know that the Scarecrow, in addition to being a character in The Wizard of Oz who wanted a brain, also is a different character. There's a different character called the Scarecrow who is a Batman villain. And like, I don't think that joke is, like, I think it's a fun joke for people who know the references, but I understand that not everyone will.
That's funny.
All right, and this one we were talking about. If aliens landed and demanded one joke to represent Earth, like what joke and what topic, or what I mean? Like, I know obviously you got a billion jokes, but just something that represents us, right?
Of my own or of anybody's?
Yeah, I mean anything, or yours or whatever. Like you said, one joke you had to say, hey man, we heard you're a comedian. We watched Inappropriately Funny. You were on there, and like one basically. Well, I mean, we'll just say like one joke that you thought that would encompass.
Sure. This is one that you might have to look up. I'll give you a couple.
Okay.
So here's a joke that I came up with. I'll give you 3 jokes. There's one of mine, 2 of others. One is this is my impression of God speaking to the human race. Okay. Stop hitting yourself. So that's one.
All right.
The one that I recommend looking up if you don't know it is, I don't know if you guys know the legendary Emo Phillips, one of my favorite comedians, one of the best comedians, has been at it since at least the early 80s, if not the late 70s. I know you mentioned Weird Al earlier. He is a buddy of Weird Al. I saw him open for Weird Al at Carnegie Hall a couple years ago. One of the most amazing shows I ever saw. Yeah. Emo got a standing ovation as the opening act. And Emo, like, perfect jokes, an incredible performer, an incredible writer. And he has a joke that has been voted, I forget by whom, but as like the best religious joke in the world. And so I recommend look up, and it's like a 4-minute joke. So I can't do it in full now, but it starts with a man, Emo's character in the joke comes up to a man on a bridge who looks like he's about to throw himself off the bridge. And it's about a conversation that those two have about religion. So look up Emo Phillips, best religious joke, like bridge, and that joke I think is an incredible representation of Earth. And then my final offering, I will say, I don't know, I don't want this to be representative of everyone, but I might not have the wording exactly right, but it's from The Simpsons, and I think it's Homer saying, alcohol, the solution to and cause of all of life's problems.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Oh, that's so great, man. All right, and then the last but not least here, we were talking about overused terminology in our vocabulary in English language and stuff like that. A couple that we came up with is everyone uses "no offense," and everyone uses "I literally." I literally walked out. Everything is literally. What is your take on those two? And do you have any of your own where it's just like, you know what I mean? So
sure. I mean, it's really funny that like literally in our lifetime has come to most people that use it are not using it in the way that you and I learned it growing up, to the point that, I studied linguistics in college, the study of language. And I know that, and we all know, I think if you know intellectually, the language that we speak today is different than the way that Shakespeare wrote and spoke English. The way that people spoke in the 1600s is different than today. The way that, like they said thou and we don't say thou, for example. They say F and we don't say F. And then you go back even further to like Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales. I think that's Middle English, which is it's even less intelligible. Like we wouldn't even necessarily understand. And you go back to Old English, like read Beowulf, and we can't understand the people of that time because it's almost like closer. You speak Old English? Yeah, most of us can. You can, I can't. But this is all to say the language is as language is spoken, when a language is alive, like Latin isn't changing because nobody's speaking it anymore, but English is changing because people are speaking it. And so in the dictionary now, literally has one meaning, which is our understanding of literally, which is if you say, he was lying so much that his pants were literally on fire, you'd be like, well, are his pants actually, is there fire present? And if so, then, oh, wow, he lied. And somebody was like, I don't like that you're lying. And I lit a blowtorch. And that's why your pants are on fire now, because you're liar, literally pants on fire. But there is another definition of literally that when people use it is now in the dictionary, and literally means its opposite as well. It also means figuratively, similar to, flammable and inflammable. They both mean the same thing. Right. And so I would say that I have changed as well. Growing up, I would have a pet peeve with that, because I would want words to mean things and other words to mean other things. But it was actually my learning about linguistics, my discovering of how language actually works, and that just because you want it to be a way, it doesn't mean that it is that way. And it doesn't mean that other people are going to agree with you that it is that way and use it that way. And so you can be mad. And if you enjoy being mad, then yeah, enjoy being mad. And so sometimes I will enjoy for fun being like, oh, people using words differently than I use them. Like, no offense, but I don't use them that way. But of course, also the fact that you bring up no offense is I agree with you that when people they're bringing up the concept of offense, and then they're doing it to soften the fact. They're basically just prepare for offense is what it means. Like they can be saying like, hey, I'm not a racist, but here's the most racist thing,
Yeah.
And I could go either way on this. Like my girlfriend Rini shared with me, like working in retail, she learned to, instead of saying no problem, which evokes the concept of both negativity, no, and a problem, be like, what could have been the problem? When somebody says thank you, you say absolutely, you've got it, all good. And so I find that what's that, baby? Happy to help. Yeah. Yeah, there's many ways. And for me, like you can say whatever you want, and it truly, I do my best to not let it bother me, but I find it's sort of the way that, when you do those power poses, if you stand like Wonder Woman, like your brain like activates in a way that gives you more confidence. When you smile, it tricks your brain into thinking like, why are we smiling? We must be happy. And when you say things in a positive way, obviously I'm not saying to like be full of toxic positivity and ignore when there is a problem, when there is a challenge, when there is something that needs addressing. But if it's a choice between if you're happy to help and it's a choice between saying no problem and happy to help, I find myself being more energized, more enthusiastic, it helps me to say and act and think and feel the positive way. So that is what I think about that.
Wow. Well, speaking of happy to help, man, you were a big help to us coming on and doing this again. And I got to be honest with you, I think this one was a little better than last time.
Well, it was a newer one.
You got your wingman. You got your wingman with you too. Rini's with you.
Yeah.
Yes,
and we got our wingman. I'm sorry, our wing woman. We got our wing. Speaking of Wonder Women, we got our Wonder Women with us.
Yeah. Can I tell you one more answer to a joke?
Please, it's our podcast. We do what we want.
So this is another like one of the funniest things that I ever experienced that isn't a joke specifically, but I think and hope could represent, Earth to aliens or all of life, even in the universe, including an alien planet beyond that.
Okay.
So, but I learned about it on Earth, so I'll share it as an Earth-centric thing. I don't want to speak for other alien civilizations. Now, so I don't know if we've talked about this, but I talk about it in Rini and in some of my other hours of comedy. Ayahuasca is a substance that it's a plant that grows in the jungles of South America, and it is used to create what they call medicine and what people in the States might call psychedelic drugs. And I have done ceremonies both in Peru and it's done in the jungles of Peru and in the dance studios of Brooklyn.
Okay.
But this Peruvian guy who I met, a friend of mine had done it, and I went to a gathering, and I've done many of these over the years. And so you sit, sort of in a circle at night, and it lasts about 4 hours, and the guide, gives you this like a little shot of this psychedelic drink, and then you sit and you have kind of a vision quest inside yourself while the guide leads with these mantras, with these sort of chants and songs, and it's like a beautiful feel experience. It's kind of can be very challenging. It can be like a whole lifetime of therapy happens in one night. It can be it can be beautiful. It can be heavenly. It can be hellish. It can be earthly. And so the reason I bring it up is at the very end of the ceremony begins with sort of a ceremonial ringing of these chimes. The guide will ring these 3 bells. It'll go ding, ding, ding. And then we'll know that the ceremony has begun. And then, several hours later, as the ceremony is ending, the guide, everything is winding down. He'll ring those same chimes again. Ding, ding, ding. Signaling the end of the ceremony. And then after it's over, as we are all coming back to ourselves, the guide will say something like this. He will say, "Dear sisters, brothers, we are in the finish of our ceremony for tonight. Like always, I like to give thanks to Mother Ayahuasca, for she gives teachings and medicine. Like always, I like to give thanks to Mother Earth, for she gives food, home, path, and work. Like always, I like to give thanks to our creator of the heaven and the earth, love, for is our true master. So thank you, everyone, for coming and making possible this meeting with ayahuasca like a meditation. Thank you so much for being here." So afterwards, every time he would say something like that, almost those exact words every time. And then this one time, right after he got to that point, his phone starts making noise, and his phone makes that's all, folks. And it just, we all broke out into the biggest laugh. And at first I thought it was an accident, and then I realized that he had done it on purpose to signify, we just had this incredibly sacred experience, and then also that we could laugh at it, that it had happened. It was over, and we were all there. And so I feel like that signifies what is happening on this planet. Like, it's happening, it's challenging, it's beautiful, it's weird. We don't know what's going on. We're all here. We're all in it together. We can hopefully laugh at it sometimes and do our best to be there and connect to other people and help people. And also, there's music.
Yeah.
And sometimes your phone might go off.
That's funny, man. Yeah. Well, listen, laughter is the best medicine. Hopefully, this is the, the first time or the second time we talk. Certainly won't be the last. We'll definitely have you on. And anytime you want to, want us to promote anything, by all means, contact us. Let us know. We'll absolutely forward any of your material, your info, and everything like that. And we're definitely coming to a show, and then we'll definitely let you know, and then we'll have you back, man. But again, we appreciate you taking time out. I know you have a show tonight. You're spending time with your girlfriend. I heard the sirens again, so I don't know if you sent them around the block the first time, but you know. So, but we really appreciate it. I appreciate it to both of you. Like I said, taking time out of your busy schedule. But yeah, absolutely, man. And best of luck to everything. And hopefully we'll talk soon, man.
The same. Thank you so much. You guys are great. I appreciate you.
Awesome, Myq. Thank you.
Myq, thank you very much. Again,
thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank
Rini,
you again.
thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.